Okay. Again, I'm Tracy Brown. If you need a haircut, makeup, put a little plug in there. Come see me in the cosmetology department. My email address is right here. I love to connect with other departments on campus, even other schools in our district. Whenever, my students can lend a helping hand, I'm right there to help. I love to get involved with peers. And that way my students can see outside of the department and see how what we do can help the community. So feel free to take my email address, and any way I can help out, just let me know. Um, so we'll discuss today being an inclusive institution. Um, for our school, I believe we are inclusive at PAC. Um, the very first time that I came to PAC, I felt welcomed. I did feel like a minority. I didn't see a lot of people that look like me, but that's an expectation that I have with the personality that I have and how I like to wear wild, big things and stuff. I usually tend to stand apart from everybody. So it was an expectation, but to feel so welcomed as if I was family was not an expectation I had, but it was what happened when I first came on campus. I met Dr. Flores and VP Tanner one time. And after that one time, I came back on campus as a new faculty and I was greeted by them by name. And I was shocked because out of all these people I've seen on campus, they remembered me. They remembered me by name, not as a new hire, a new faculty, the lady in the cosmetology department. It was by name. And right then and there, I felt welcomed. I felt included. Um, and I felt like I could talk to anyone on campus. So I truly believe that our institution practices what, we need to make everyone feel inclusive. But how do we do in the classroom? Are we excluding anyone without even knowing we're doing it? Are we purposely practicing inclusion and teaching our students inclusion so that they can take that characteristic outside of the classroom when they go into the workforce? Are we teaching these? Are we demonstrating equity and inclusion? So at the end of this presentation, I would hope that we can develop a social consciousness, prepare ourselves for any challenges, become more of a family, identify barriers of exclusion, and identify, some of the universal supports that are out there so that we can practice inclusion in what we do on campus. Before I continue on, does anybody have any questions for me or comments? Okay, I'll go ahead and continue on. Um, I asked a few people from different schools, different teachers from different schools. I've asked my peers in the department. I even asked family, what did they think about inclusion? What did they think about exclusion? And majority of everyone said, what do you mean? Um, And to me, it was a word that seemed like it was common sense. It seemed like, with what we were going through in this time of our lives, that everybody would understand what inclusion meant and what exclusion meant. I asked my mother, who I swear is the smartest person in the world, which I'm sure we all think our mothers are the best people and the smartest people. I asked my mother, what does she think about the topic? And she asked me, what do you mean? What does that mean? So I wanted to make sure we had an understanding or we're on the same page of inclusivity and exclusivity. So inclusivity, the definition that I looked up is the practice or policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those having physical or mental disabilities or belonging to other minority groups. And of course, the opposite of that would be exclusion, excluding or not admitting other things unable to exist or be true if something else exists or is true. That second part of exclusion got to me. I had a hard time figuring out if I ever been excluded because honestly, I truly believe that I'm Hispanic. I grew up here in San Antonio. I don't know what an African American culture is. I know what a Hispanic culture is. That's my culture. When my family says, hey, come over, eat with us for Easter, guess what we're eating? Enchiladas. Some potato salad, and auntie's bringing the Spanish rice because nobody else can touch her Spanish rice, right? New Year's, my uncle, hey niece, are you coming? We're having menudo. And I'm looking like, why aren't we eating greens and pork chops and some soul food, black eyed peas and all of that, sweet potatoes? No, we're eating menudo, and we'll probably have some enchiladas with that as well. That's my culture. That's what I grew up knowing. So I had a hard time trying to figure out, have I ever been excluded? And then when I got to the second part of the definition, exclusivity, unable to exist or be true if something else exists or is true, that one hit me because, like I said, when I usually walk into a room, I stand out because either my hair is really wild or I have the big earrings, just different things like that. And I think that's me tapping into my African American culture. And I usually stand out. I'm different than everyone because I don't look like everything else that is believed to be right. um, I feel excluded. So, with that said, I want to talk about an assignment I did with my students. I'm going to move the gallery images out the way. So, I did an assignment this semester. I have a class called Chemical Reformation. Now, chemical reformation is where we're teaching the students about the chemistry behind changing the texture of hair, where we're changing hair from straight to curly, curly to straight, extremely curly to manageably curly, extremely curly to straight. I think I said that. We're teaching them how to transition the hair permanently to a different look. Normally, we want our hair to look different because one, society has told us that we should have our hair different. Or two, we need to manage our hair because society teaches us we need to manage our hair. Our hair needs to be kept in a certain type of way. Um, so when I was coming up with my lesson plan, I kept asking myself, why do people change their hair texture? If you're born this way, why do you keep trying to change your hair texture? That's almost to me like changing your skin color, changing your heritage, changing your culture because you feel it's not good enough, maybe, or it's not right. So I asked my students to do a discussion board on how does chemical reformation play a role in society, in religion, in race, in men, in women. And I was doing a little bit of background research myself, and I put in Google, what does a professional hairstyle look like? Is it straight? Is it curly? Is it wavy? What does professional hair look like? And this is the image that I got today. So I looked it up before, weeks ago at the beginning of the semester. Today I went back in to Google something more current, and it was professional hairstyles for work. And if I could get someone to tell me, what do they see in these images?
I mean,
What do
honestly, I see hair that's made to look more like people from, European extractions hair. I mean, yeah, it's like white lady hair.
very sleek, straight,
Yeah.
kept, yeah. And then I mean I did see African American hairstyles, but when you take a closer look at the African American hairstyles, right here at the bottom, it said unprofessional hairstyles. That hurt. That hurt me. Um, but it is what it is. It's not like I didn't know that. I have friends who say, "Oh, I have a job interview. Can you straighten my hair?" And me being me, why? Why do you need to straighten your hair for a job interview? I have a girlfriend and she's like, "Oh, I need to go find which wig I'm gonna put on today for my job interview." And I'm like, "Why do you have job interview wigs? Like that's saying I gotta put on my earrings and heels for it's an accessory now. It's not you anymore. You are being what's true to everybody else. And in that way, we can feel excluded. So I could imagine Mallory. I'm gonna pick on Mallory because she said she had locks today. I can see Mallory as a little girl walking onto campus with this big old poofy head of hair. And everybody else that looks like her has this straight, tousled kind of hair. And they can just go about their day where she's struggling to comb out her hair at the end of the day because it's so curly. And in just that manner, she can feel excluded from her other classmates just because of her hair. Dealing with hair right there could make you feel like you belong or not belong. Also, in the images, I noticed with the men, I never ever see men with professional hair that's curly. And I only have one picture that came up in the part of the screen that I was able to capture, and his hair is straight. I rarely ever see a guy with curly hair, and usually the guys that come into the salon chop it all off. They get rid of all their curls because that's what society expects from us. So we fulfilled the assignment this semester, and I pulled two excerpts from two students from their discussion board. And if you guys can check that out, one student said, "I also learned that no race owns curly hair. It is sometimes forced upon in religions and cultures where women and sometimes men are taught to suppress their curl because it was said to be unprofessional. And that is when lots of people were heading to the salon, damaging their hair to have it become what some view as pretty hair." Okay, so take the hair out of it. What else? What else do we feel we're forced to change so we can look like everybody else around us, so we can look like our classmates, so we can look like our coworkers, so we can feel included? What else is forced upon us to make us feel included? What is it about us that makes us feel excluded? The other student said, and this was surprising for me. I didn't expect her to write about this. But she said, "I recall learning in a Mexican American history course about the Spanish caste system in Mexico. This was a hierarchy of race where people with more Spanish blood ranked higher in the case than the caste, than people with less Spanish blood. There are many paintings with light skinned royals at the top of the caste and dark skinned indigenous people and slaves at the bottom. As society seemed to progress, there would be images of indigenous people being used to reflect days of the past. The images held negative connotations where one was to think that dark skin and unruly hair meant bad, troubled, and poor, whereas images of people with light skin and groomed hair meant good, successful, and ideal. And I believe that in every culture, there's an issue with lighter skin, darker skin. So you're sitting in a room where most people are lighter skin, and you get the feeling of being less than just because of skin tone, or, straight hair, your hair is curly, and you feel less than because of what you see around you. That's supposed to be the norm. Um, I did hear about what do you call it? It was some stats that they did. They did a test in one of the colleges, and what they were trying to see is how do students perform when they feel included compared to how students perform when they're excluded. And of course, you can guess that a lot of the students performed poorly when they felt excluded. They were told, um, majority of you minorities are not going to pass this exam because minorities usually don't pass the exam. And then they were given the exam and they performed very poorly. Then they had another group. where they told them, oh, the minorities usually do very, very well on the exam. And they were like hyped up, giving positive affirmations, and they did way better on the same exam. So if you have someone in your classroom and you happen to make them feel excluded, we could possibly be affecting their performance. They could be performing a whole lot better, but because they feel excluded, they're performing poorly. So learning how to practice inclusion in the classroom is very vital for us. So I want to do a walk with you guys. Some of you have probably seen this. Probably a lot of you have seen the privilege walk. I've always wanted to do it. And, we're online, so we can't go outside in this beautiful sunny weather today to do the actual walk. So we're going to do it here. And what I would like is if you could just use your fingers, since we can't do the walk. And if the statement applies to you and it says take one step back, remove one of your 10 fingers. And if it says take a step forward, add a finger. Um, if it doesn't apply to you, then you just, if it doesn't tell you to take a step forward or back, don't remove any fingers. So we're going to start with 10 fingers, all of us, and take a look. Take a look at the statements and see, if they apply to us. I think we have a good variety of backgrounds today to see how this exercise pans out. So it's about 34 questions. It should go kind of quickly. Um, so one, if your ancestors were forced to come to the USA, not by choice, take one step back or remove one finger. Okay. If your primary ethnic identity is American, take one step forward. So you can add a finger if it applies. Are you American? If you were ever called names because of your race, class, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation, take one step back to remove a finger. If you were ever ashamed or embarrassed of your clothes, your house, your car, etc., take one step back or remove a finger. If one or both of your parents were white collar professionals, like a doctor or a lawyer, take one step forward. Okay. Oops, hold on, let me go back. I can't work the keyboard with one hand. Okay. You ever tried to change your appearance, mannerisms, or behavior to avoid being judged or ridiculed? Take one step back. If you studied the culture of your ancestors in elementary school, take one step forward. If you went to school speaking a language other than English, take a step back. If there were more than 50 books in your house when you grew up, take one step forward. If you ever had to skip a meal or were hungry because there was not enough money to buy food when you were growing up, take one step back. If you were taken to art galleries or plays by your parents, take a step forward. Okay. Like I said, I can work the keyboard with one hand over here. All right. If one of your parents was unemployed or laid off, not by choice, take one step back. If you attended private school or summer camp, take one step forward. If your family ever had to move because they could not afford the rent, take one step back. If you were told that you were beautiful, smart, and capable by your parents, take one step forward. If you were ever discouraged from academics or jobs because of your race, class, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation, take one step back. Oh, wait, got to remove a finger. Okay. If you were encouraged to attend college by your parents, take one step forward. If you have a disability, take one step backward. If you were raised in a single parent household, take one step back. If your family owned the house where you grew up, take one step forward. If you saw members of your race, ethnic group, gender, or sexual orientation portrayed on television in a degrading role, take one step back. Okay, almost there. If you were offered a job because of your association with a friend or family member, take one step forward. If you were ever denied employment because of your race, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation, take one step back. If you were paid less, treated less fairly because of your race, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation, take a step back. If you ever inherited money or property, take one step forward and send see a check in the mail. Okay. If you had to rely primarily on public transportation, take one step back. If you were ever stopped or questioned by the police, sorry, I'm doing my fingers wrong. If you were ever stopped or questioned by the police because of your race, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation, take one step back. Okay, I'm going into the negatives. I got to use my toes now. If you were ever afraid of violence because of your race, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation, take a step back. If your parents own their own business, take one step forward. If you were generally able to avoid places that were dangerous, take one step forward. Okay, and last page. If you were ever uncomfortable about a joke related to your race, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation, but felt unsafe to confront the situation, take one step back. If your parents attended college, take one step forward. If your parents told you that you could be anything you wanted to be, take one step forward. And if you are able to take a step forward or backward, take two steps forward. Okay, so let's see what we're left with. All right, 10 fingers. Okay, what about those in the chat? How many fingers did you guys have left? Okay, so normally when this is done with a group of, usually they do this with a group of teenagers, and there's some really hard questions that are asked, like well, my daughter did this at a camp, and they were asked if their father was still living, and she had to take a step back and broke down in tears. And then she said she broke down in even more tears because she felt it's not funny. She felt bad because the little Asian boy was further behind her. And she said she thought she was going to be left behind, but she noticed there are other uh, cultures and religions and races, sexual orientations that are even less privileged than an African American woman. And she said she was in tears because she always felt like she should be back there, but there are others who feel the way she feels that don't look like her. And normally with these walks, it is a male, white male, Caucasian male who's in the front to show where the privileges lie. So we have to understand when we walk into a situation, you're not the only one who has a lack of privilege. There are others around us who lack privilege. There's others around us who feel excluded. And it's our job to make sure that they don't feel that way when they step into our campus, our classrooms. There are some that feel really privileged, and we have to teach them how to not make someone feel excluded and how to practice inclusivity. So, how do we do that? How do we do that as an institution? How do we, on our campus, make people who come on campus feel included? How do we demonstrate equity at Palo Alto? That's what I want to ask you guys. What are some activities we do or can do?
Well, I don't know about activities, but just like the visuals that we use to represent our school, they have a mix of everyone, every person that you can possibly think of. And even now, with when I was taking a class and they were, talking about like media and creating visuals, that they said that you want to make sure that you're using people of all race and all colors because, that's they want to appeal to everyone. And, thinking back when I was a child, I didn't see the only time I ever saw an Hispanic on a billboard type of thing was like free pregnancy testing, you know. So, this is really refreshing to kind of see that all the different types being represented.
Wow, I didn't even think about that. And now I'm thinking about it. Someone from out of town who's used to being around a lot of African Americans and not around Hispanics mentioned, oh, wow. So you have a hair weave store, an abortion clinic, a billboard of a Mexican girl giving up her child, and a pawn shop all in one area. And when he said that, it was kind of funny, but it wasn't funny. And I'm like, now that you bring it up, it brings it back. Like, yeah, they usually do have a Hispanic girl on the billboards when they're talking about things of abortion or pregnancies or teen pregnancies, um, using birth control. It's crazy. I don't think I could recall seeing a billboard here with a Black man being told to use birth control. Yeah. Wow. Wow. And I wonder too, like, how do our marketing department or the guys with the cameras, when they're trying to take pictures of everybody, they're just like pulling strangers. Like, oh, we need to get all these diversities in here. And looking at some of our pictures that I pulled off the internet, that's what I was looking for. Do we have a mixture in our photos? Which I knew we did because I see them doing it all the time on campus. I mean, my little chocolate face is always on the camera. So I know there's some kind of diversity going on. Anybody have some ideas of things they participated in or would like to have on campus that would include everyone, that would make everyone feel included, feel welcomed?
I knew at one of the schools that I went to, and it was only for pre-K. I got into pre-K, and it was a really nice school. I only got to stay for pre-K though, but they would have every month. They would the cafeteria would give out different types of foods from different cultures, and and I remember that even as I was like 4 years old, but it stuck in my head. I didn't know what chopsticks were, and then fried Jello, for Soul Food Day, and it was just really interesting, because I mean, I was never exposed to any of this at home. We had pretty, you know, same old stuff at home, but
Hmm.
I think that just having like different foods and different, cultures being represented through food, I think that's probably like the funnest and way to kind of bring everybody together. Everyone wants to eat. Everyone likes to eat. You know what I mean?
Right. Mallory, that's what I noticed. I did not know what my culture was. My son came home and he said, we have to cook something from our culture. And he was like, and Mom, everybody's bringing Mexican food. I said, yeah, you go to a Mexican school, son. He went to school on the west side. I said, well, what you want me to cook? Like some greens? I don't even know. Like, I'm like, everything I could think of is pretty much Southern food. And I'm like, is that our culture? Southern food? Texas is not really considered Southern. So I'm just like, I didn't know. So y'all, I cook fried chicken. I didn't know what to do. And those kids to this day, Miss Tracy, can you make us some fried chicken? And my kids don't even, they graduated already. But I didn't know what to do. I was like, what do I cook? I don't even know what my culture is. I could get down on some tacos. They want some chorizo and eggs. What do they want? I could get down on that. Yeah, that's when I learned, like, I really don't even know what my culture is. Wow. Feedback of activities that we do that include our students of all backgrounds.
Well, I teach the sociology, so in the classroom, it's not something that I do throughout the whole campus, but in the classroom, we do talk a lot about these issues, and it's all the activities that I think are very impactful is when we talk to students and we as the instructors and we say that we're also learning. So it's about be saying role modeling that we're in the process of learning as well, and to basically welcome everyone wherever they are, because that way it doesn't it helps to create an environment, a safe environment where students can say, well, this is where I am and I have a long way to go. But it's okay because we're all learning together. And then you have those students who are way ahead, and so they can teach everyone. So it's about that, that sense of inclusion. It's also that sense of, okay, respecting each other and creating the environment to where um, we allow people to stay where they are and not be afraid. So I think that's, for me in the classroom, that's what I do.
Yeah, I like that. Not having fear. I think a lot of times fear holds us back from really doing what we may know to be right. We have a fear of offending people, offending anyone because lack of maybe knowledge on our part, lack of knowledge about their background. Um, I know in some psychology courses, I think they talk about like the LGBT community, how to, I guess, understand that community, how to relate to that community. And one of my students was saying they had a project. She had to spend a day with someone in their household, in their home. He lived as a straight man in his home and away from home as a woman. And so she spent the day with him, observing his lifestyle. And I just thought I wouldn't know how to keep a straight face through that and not judge or have a certain type of opinion. I would probably make him feel excluded just by my facial expressions that I can't contain. And I just thought, wow, even with sexual orientation, we could make people feel a certain type of way. Um, Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, well, one of the things, and I haven't wanted to talk over the ethnic or the racial conversation that we're having here because I think it's an important one. But speaking as somebody who is LGBTQ, I I think that, I mean, I know we have a picture up there of SAC doing something,
Hmm.
right? But
Hmm.
I mean, one of the things that is really fraught for someone from that community, and and I think I tend to be even more invisible because I'm bisexual and I'm currently in a relationship with a man. Doesn't change my orientation. I'm never not bisexual, but
Right,
I tend to get I tend to get coded as straight when people see me or if people know about my relationship. But one of the things that we look for is this a safe place to be my whole self, right?
right,
And in the absence of those signals, I mean, and I don't know how it is for people from other minoritized backgrounds because I'm not part of those communities, but in the absence of those signals, the assumption is that it's not safe. You know, um, because a lot of us have experienced homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, what have you.
right,
And like we at PAC, I don't know that we have a whole lot of external cues that it's safe. You know, we may not
right,
have like overt like gay bashing or trans bashing happening on campus. I can't think of the last time I heard a homophobic slur, but in the absence of those, the coast is clear, it's all safe to be signals. Yeah,
right,
I mean, like a number of people tend to keep it under wraps, and
right,
um, and I think about if that's something I notice as a faculty member, how much less comfortable are some of our students who don't even have that degree of power? You know what I mean?
right.
So I don't know. This might be a brainstorming opportunity. How do we send
Yeah.
those signals that it's safe?
Right. And that's a lot of what I wanted to do. I wanted it to be more conversation than someone just talking at someone. Um, I have some students, and I notice they withdraw, they get
Mm-hmm.
real quiet, and I'm just like, loosen up. I can't be the only crazy one up in here today. And one day I was out sick and something just got to me and I called this one particular student. I said, hey, I don't know what's going on. But I want you to know you're on my mind and that if you ever need to talk, or whatever. And I just had a quick little conversation and he just broke down in tears. He said, I did not know I could talk to you that way because I didn't know how you looked at me. And I said, I look at you like a cosmetology student. I don't know how else you want me to look at you. Like, I don't see color, age, none of that. I see green dollar bills when we're in this lab. We're talking about making money when we walk into the lab. So I don't know what you wanted me to see, but I see your heart. And all of a sudden it was like he was free, he was more fun, more friendly, talked more, and I'm just like, who is this person? He just opened up just from that one phone call, and I didn't realize that I made him feel excluded. And I probably didn't do anything, but like you said, where are those cues at that it's safe? Because it can feel very unsafe. You could feel like you're in a volatile situation almost. I could not find anything on PAC's images, but I found the sack one. I'm glad you noticed that. I was like,
Probably,
I
I'm
don't know where
thinking,
the PAC stuff is at.
yeah. Well, I'm thinking they probably are taking the stronger hand. I mean, like, look at where they're located, right? I mean, this is, like the Pride Parade literally goes right by their campus every summer.
Yeah,
So it makes sense that they would be like, oh, we should probably do something.
I think it would be
Yeah.
awesome just to have different flags. You know how we have the Palomino flags around campus? To include flags of other communities. I think they have like this banner for Black Lives Matter now.
Mhm.
You have the gay pride flag. I would even like to see I don't think I've seen it, an Asian Heritage Month. We have the Hispanic Heritage Month. We have the African American Month, Black History Month. And I don't think I've seen anything for like an Asian History Month, but that would be awesome. I mean, bring on the Asian food. I would be in the cafeteria every day that month. But things like that, like adding the flags up, adding banners up, adding more heritage months, Indian for Native Americans, just different cultures. I think that would help us open up that door for inclusion. We're known for
Like
what
this.
is, yeah, colors. Add
I
some
bet at home.
colors. I love our teal. I love it. But add a few more flags in there to let people know we support you. Here's a cue that it's okay and this is a safe place. I think, yeah. Oh, feedback on that?
Um, I'm a minority African American uh, guy, and somebody mentioned being exposed to uh, certain cultures as far as you know different types of food. The culinary experiences of other cultures. Well, my first experience with Chinese or Oriental food was when I was in the fifth grade, and we had cultural awareness day, and I found out that I really like fried rice, and it was my first time having it, and I loved it. And that curiosity, I was always taught to treat people the way I want to be treated, and I actually had a higher score on your exercise because um, both my parents did go to college, and um, we own our house, and I can't say with certainty that I didn't get a job because of my race or anything like that. And I was in the military for over 20 years, so that's really the only job I had. And the military has they have agencies and things like that in place for discrimination. So I but I have experience being pulled over by the police multiple times, and I do feel like my race was attributed to that, but I've never had a negative experience being being pulled over because I again always treat people the way I want to be treated, and it's kindness and smile and make them laugh, tell a joke. That's always worked out for me, especially because people tend to judge me based on, I'm a 230-pound African American guy with a bald head, so I look very much intimidating on the exterior, and I'm aware of that. And for me, a lot of times that bothers me because I'm very much a gummy bear on the inside, but I have to be aware of my exterior because I could very easily intimidate people, but that's not. I wasn't raised to be an intimidator.
Right.
So there's just my experiences as a minority and an African American guy that very much looks the part of an intimidator and things like that. But again, my score is actually high because um, I didn't have some of the experiences like others, as far as not having role models to look up to as far as higher education and the instability of having to move because rent wasn't able to get paid. I was actually blessed in that department, but I can't relate to some of the other areas of not of being again targeted by police and entering a room and despite my exterior feeling uncomfortable, and I'm not a Mr. Congeniality type guy. But again, I can't change how people view me. I can only you have to. I'm more than willing to talk to people and try to So I really go out of my way to try to dispel, demystify stereotypes about African American guy because I believe I have um, taken a different path. Higher education, never been arrested. Um, things like that, and I've been in my son's life from from birth until he's nearly 18. So no, that's my opinion, my experiences as a minority African American guy. So, and that's why I was interested in taking this class. Sorry for the soapbox moment.
No, I like that feedback because um sometimes you get beat up for that. You get beat up for actually having a good life, and that's not right. That's not okay. I see it all the time on social media. Someone will make a comment, it was one African American girl taking several pictures with white police officers, and she got beat up for that. Like, not physically beat up, but verbally beat up on social media, and they were calling her nasty names, and I'm like, because she chooses to be surrounded by this, it's not right. I don't get it. And it was because all the stuff that was going on, the whole George Floyd thing. You can't get mad at a person because they're comfortable around something you're not comfortable around. So I'm glad you gave that feedback. And, my mom made me feel like I was included. My father, my whole family made me feel like I was included. So I never knew when someone was doing something, wrong towards me or being negative towards me. I wasn't able to identify it as easily because, it wasn't uh, as present as other people. Um, Someone has to like make it blatantly clear, like, I'm doing this because of your race for me to get it. Otherwise, I look right over it because I think of it like the world's been good to me. My family's been good to me. All the stuff that I've been through, people have been good to me. Like you said, it's because I give that goodness out there. I expect to receive it back, and I do receive it back. So I don't always acknowledge, like Aurora was saying, Border Patrol. They are a hot mess. I, didn't realize Border Patrol was pulling me over and putting the dogs on me because of my race. It was after it happened that someone had to explain to me why it happened to me and not everybody else, the 20 million other cars that were going through there. I was the only Black person that went through there. And they put the dogs out on me. And I'm like, I'm a teacher. Don't be doing that to me. Do you know who I am? So that was good feedback. Good feedback.
Also, if I can make one more comment,
Yes.
I'm I know that there's a lot of traumatic and negative things happening in our nation, but I'm, again, based on my background and because of all the negativity, I like to infuse positivity and examples of how encounters that we see in the news actually, when I went through those encounters, they worked out for me. So um, three of my favorite teachers at predominantly African American school were are white Caucasian teachers. That my computer lab teacher, Miss Strickland, called me a very smart young man all the time, and now I'm a cybersecurity professional. Mr. Mr. Kirkham, my world geography teacher, used to move me to the front of the class so nobody would cheat out my paper to, again, make me feel like I was a smart young man. And the same thing with English. You know, my English teacher, Miss, I can't remember her name, but she would also move me to the front of the class. And then at the end of the school year, she would send me to a English literary rally for the bright literary minds, and from each school. Each school would send, you know, a handful of students. So I understand what's going on, and not a lot of people's experiences are similar to mine. But I feel like it's important to make those positive experiences known in the midst of all this negativity. Like, hey, I look like you, but not everybody that doesn't look like us or have been uh, have had a negative impact in my life, or I've had negative experiences with it. It hasn't been the case. I've had very positive and impactful, long-lasting experiences with people that didn't look like me, that believed in me, and went out of their way to let me know that. So I wanted to just mention that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we're in our last few minutes, and I would like to challenge, all of us to uh, change up our classrooms a little bit, change up what we teach a little bit. And how did Mary put it? It was those little like hints of it's okay, you're included in the classroom and in your lessons. I have brought up, maybe the school should put up flags and stuff. Then I thought about it. I could do like a cool project with the mannequins and have the students decorate their mannequins in how they believe, is what their community is, what their culture is, and have those mannequins set up all over the school in our department to show we welcome it all, whatever, wherever, however you come, we welcome you. So I want to challenge you guys to think of ways to demonstrate inclusion and equity in what you do. Anybody have any other questions? No.
Well, I was going to say that when I was teaching high school, anytime I would need a visual, I would always try to make sure that it was representation of my students, of what they were used to. And I even, one time I went, it was a small school, it was a charter school, so everyone knew everybody. I even did like a worksheet where I put my students' names
Right.
in the worksheet.
Yeah.
And they loved that, but it also, I had the advantage of I was teaching in the neighborhood I grew up in, so me myself was a representation or an extension of them, and they could see that someone from their neighborhood, can be successful. It's not, we're, I always say like the exception of the rule, and we hope that one day it's no longer the exception but the rule, that type of thing. Or I would let them know, like I would have a sign that says your zip code does not determine your future.
I like that.
I always had that like visual. But I know you can't decorate your class, but in high school you can decorate your classroom.
Right,
Um,
right.
and I would always try to have books by Hispanic writers, just like non-Western, just literature available. And I even had people visitors come in for the what is it? We had the month of November, the Indigenous month. I had my friend Isaac who came in his full galia and did like a couple of dances that
Oh,
because we met at a
nice.
powwow one time. So just different things like that, making fried bread, and I feel like if you can, the quickest way to get to know a culture is by tasting it. So,
Right.
those are just some of the things that I would do in the class to just kind of, make everyone feel that this is where they're supposed to be. No one's ever an other in my class.
I
And
like this idea.
and actually, in my classroom, I try because sociology is about learning about all these different types of types of populations. So I encourage students to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We're going to part of higher education is to expose you to looking at the world in ways that you're not familiar with, and it's okay to feel uncomfortable. And that actually helps your brain to grow when you make all these different connections because wow, I saw something or we talked about something that was so totally different to my worldview. And so that's where I try to create that kind of sense of safety. And where I put in the board on the walls, I try to put to be 100% honest with while at the same time being 100% respectful. So it's creating that atmosphere because we are going to be talking about atheism. We are going to be talking about homosexuality, homophobia, or Islamophobia. We're going to be talking about that because that's part of what sociology is about. So for me, it's about first saying, I still have opportunities to grow myself. I'm not perfect, but I will try to create the safest environment I can for you. And if at any point you don't feel that it's safe, then talk to me because then there's something that I need to, as the instructor, that I need to do. But I'm always encouraging, be okay with being uncomfortable because this sociology is about that. It's about seeing our own biases and being able to try to see the other person's point of view. And when
Right.
it can be uncomfortable and it's
Yeah.
okay.
I like that. It's okay with being uncomfortable. I like that. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much.